So today we're talking about subject-verb agreement. You will be covering that in lesson 2 of the grammar unit. So remember that your subject and verb have to agree if one is singular, if the verb or the noun is singular, then the verb has to be singular. If the noun is plural, then the verb has to be plural. So it just has to agree or match. So if two nouns are joined by and, then it would be a plural verb, like Joe and Nancy. That's two people, so it would be a plural verb. If they are joined by the word or nor, then they're singular or plural depending on the noun. So if it's two singular nouns joined by or nor, then it's a singular verb. If it's two plural nouns joined, then it is a plural verb. And this will be a lot more clear once we start going into the units and talking about this a little bit more in depth and in the video that we're watching today. So a singular noun with an or and a singular noun is a singular verb, like I just said. A plural noun with the word or and a plural noun is a plural verb. A singular noun with the word or with a plural noun, so if I have one singular and one plural noun and I'm joining them with the word or, then the closest noun to the verb is going to be what tense or what the verb will be. If the verb will be singular or plural, just depends on the one that's closest to the verb. Okay, then we have collective nouns, and collective nouns are like groups, right? So when I'm talking about one collective noun, then it's a singular verb. So for example, one team would be a singular verb. So if I said a herd of cows, that would be a singular verb because the noun or the subject of that phrase is herd, not the word cows. Cows only describe what kind of herd, but I'm actually talking about a herd. So then that would be one herd would be a singular verb. But if I was talking about more than one collective noun, then that would be a plural verb. And so the example would be two or more teams would be a plural verb. So in the same example, 3 herds of buffalo would have a plural verb because the noun or subject of that phrase is herds, not buffalo. The buffalo only describes what kinds of herds there are, but I'm talking about more than one herd. So then that would be a plural verb. Okay. Then there's indefinite pronouns. And indefinite pronouns are pronouns that are always singular, always plural, or some of them just depend on the noun that follows the indefinite pronoun. So on page 7, there is a list in lesson 2 of your curriculum of those indefinite pronouns. And it will give you a list of the ones that are always singular, the ones that are always plural, and the ones that depend on the noun that follows that pronoun. So make sure you take a look at that list. Some of these things will be on your quick check and the test at the end of the unit. So make sure that you guys are taking notes. Then there's prepositional phrases and dependent clauses. So remember, you have to locate the subject and ignore all the following words and match your verb to that subject. So just a lot of times you can read a sentence aloud and then listen to how it sounds and figure out if it's correct or not. So just make sure that you're reading aloud. We're going to watch a short video on subject-verb agreement.
Hello, grammarians. Today we're going to talk about subject-verb agreement. And what this is the idea that you want your subject and your verb to get along in a sentence. What agreement is in grammar is the art of making sure that sentence parts connect with one another in the right way. It's making sure, that square peg goes in a square hole, right? Not a square peg and round hole, square peg and a triangular hole. You want to make sure that the way you render your subject fits with the way you've rendered your verb. So what do I mean by that? So let's take the sentence, the dog barks. So we have this subject, the dog, and it is singular. There's one of it. And the way this verb is, the word is conjugated. The way this verb is conjugated, the way we've assembled or figured out how the verb is going to be, is also a singular conjugation. So we say the dog barks and not the dog bark, right? This is not standard American English. Like this does not, this is the plural form. You can say the dogs bark, right? Because there's more than one dog here, and this is the verb, this is the plural form. I know it's kind of strange that the third person singular form of a verb ends in s. Like if English made sense, like if I ran the zoo, right? Like I would want it to work like this: the dogs barks, right? Because there's an s, there's multiple. Unfortunately, for many weird reasons and the history of English, it didn't work out that way. A third person singular verb usually ends in an s, right? So I talk, that's first person. Third person is she talks. We eat. That's plural, first person. They eat. See, no S. It's only this weird third person singular here that's got that S on the end. So if you're trying to figure out how to make something agree, if you're unsure as you're writing, so if you're looking at a sentence like the dogs bark, and you can't figure out if it's supposed to be the dog's bark or the dog barks or the dog's barks, ask yourself first, what is the subject of the sentence? So first find the subject. And then ask yourself, is it singular or plural? Is it S or P? Is it salt or is it pepper? And then if you can remember that, then just remember that singular S usually results in another S. So if it's the dog and that's singular, then you're going to want to put that S over here. So if the subject isn't a noun, but a pronoun, same question. Is it singular or plural? I is singular, there's only one me. We is plural, there's many of us. And if it's singular, third person, so like she, he, it, end it in an S. Another thing to remember is that most what we call indefinite pronouns are third person singular. So if you wanted to ask whether or not anyone knows the way to San Jose as a question, but you're not sure whether or not it would be does anyone know the way to San Jose or do anyone know the way to San Jose? Well, the word anyone is third person singular, and although do is an irregular verb, we still kind of hold to the idea that a third person singular verb ends in an S, so it's a Z sound written as an S. So we would say does. So does anyone know? As opposed to, if it were in the plural, do we know? Right? So does is singular, do is plural. And that's kind of the basic idea of subject verb agreement. Is you want to make sure that the number of things in your subject matches up with the number in your predicate. So is the subject singular or plural? If it's third person singular, the verb probably ends in an S, even though the third person singular noun or pronoun does not. You can learn anything. David out.